Greetings, programmers! Busted Thumbs back for episode number 16 of our Music Player Studio. And we're in a good place right now. Our music's playing. It works on kind of, if everything's ideal, if it's what we call the golden case, then everything seems to be working pretty well. We're playing our music and it's kind of fun to hear it play. However, there are some problems. We discovered one of them was when if there's fewer notes in or fewer measures in one bit of the music than there is in the other, like the right hand versus the left hand or the melody versus the accompaniment, then it just kind of stops playing. And one of the problems that I identified last time that we need to work on this time is that right here in the read to value, this is the thing that reads our notes and our durations and all of that. It has this little repeat clause inside of it, and it says, go ahead and look for the next letter that I need to read from the item inside this list, which has our music inside of it, and just keep doing that until that letter equals the value which we want to stop at. And that works perfectly fine until you get to the very end, because at some point we're just reading, and we never know when that end is. And so when we get to the very end here, the music reading index, which is the number of the letter that we're looking at inside of our that big long string, it gets longer than the actual length of the item inside of here. Oops. And in a normal programming language, what would happen is the language would throw an exception. It would say, why are you looking for letter 5 in something that's only 3 long? I don't know what you're talking about. And it would tell you, hey, that's no good. You can't do that. And you'd have to handle what to do when that error came up. But Scratch doesn't have anything like exceptions, so we have to come up with something on our own to handle the case. And what we really need to do here is we need to be looking for more than one condition, not just when we get to see that particular value, but we have to make sure also that there's enough room inside of there. So we need another condition in here. So I'm going to make that one of the conditions, but here's another one. If the music reading index is greater than the length of that item, then we also need to stop. So I'm going to get a greater than, and I'm going to get the music reading index out of here. And I'm going to check it against the length of that thing. And the length is a green block. And then we have to go back to data to get the item of. And then we have to use it's the exact same thing as this one over here. And you're going to see that this is going to get really, really big, so we're going to have to move it. In fact, let's go ahead and stick it down here. It's going to be the same as that one right there. So we need to make it for music instrument 1, and we have to use my instrument list index. Okay, when we do this, it's going to say as soon as it gets to the very end of that list, and you can ask for the 6th letter in an item that is a 6-letter list, so equals is okay, but you can't ask for the 7th. So if this becomes 7 and the length of that thing is only 6, then we want it to stop and just get out of here. And when that happens, it should be that the temp read value, which we came in with, is set to blank. It won't do any of these things here to set the temp read value again. So when it's all done, it should just be blank. And we can actually even speed this up a little bit more by throwing one of these guys in. Oops, looks like I hid something. Let's not hide that. There we go. Not stop all, but stop this script. Okay, now we need to, and the reason for that is it's just going to check each one of these music instrument indexes. So if we're already 1, it's never going to hit 2, 3, or 4. So we can just stop it and it doesn't have to do that check. We have to repeat what we've done here for each one of these guys. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of these repeat untils. And I'm going to duplicate the one that I have up there and stick them in here. And once I've done that, the only thing I have to do now is to adjust these music instrument 1s to music instrument 2, then 3, and then 4. And these ones should match underneath them. See 3 and 3, 4 and 4, 4 and 4. And I can optimize these guys too to do stop this script, stop this script. And I don't need it in this one because there's nothing afterwards. So all we're doing by putting this stop the script in here is we're saying you don't have to check this music instrument thing in this if condition anymore. Okay. So now, how has this changed our program? It should come through here and no longer get stuck here. It should be able to exit out of this guy when it's doing each one of these steps here. So when we're reading the next note, at some point we're going to be setting each one of these things to a blank value. And if it's a blank value, I actually kind of want, because we already have, if you'll notice over here when we read it, we're checking the very first note to see if it's 0. And if it's 0, then if it is 0, because that's our kind of starting condition, that's when we start reading the next note and going on. Well, I want to have a special condition for when we've gotten to the very end. And that special condition is to set that number to -1 instead of 0. I know it's kind of set to blank and we could check for that, but checking for blank is really kind of filled with problems because it's very difficult to see blank versus something with a white space character like a spacebar character in it. So I'm going to try and have that check for blank happen only once. And we'll do that here. We'll say if the next note is equal to blank. And see, that's right now it's not blank, it's one space character. I want to make sure that that's blank. Like that. Then I'm going to actually set all of these guys, these 4 things, to -1. I'm going to set next note measure, next note beat in measure, next note, and next note duration. I'm going to set those all to -1. And that's just going to mean all done. I couldn't read anything else. And so I'm just going to go to this state of being negative. And here, of course, we're checking to see if it's 0. And that was kind of going to be our termination condition. So what I'm going to change this one just slightly. I'm going to instead of being 0, it's going to check for 0 or -1. And I can do that simply by checking to see if next note is less than 1. And I've got to do that here as well. All right. So let's try our test guy out again. I'll make this guy bigger. Let's go ahead and play him. Let's try our test song. All right, so that's an improvement. If you remember when we were playing before, the test music, it had one note in the left hand and a bunch of notes in the right hand. And before we did this fix, it was only playing one note from each, and then it was done. It couldn't handle it anymore. So we fixed that problem by fixing to make sure that our instruments stop playing when they get to the end. So that one clone that was playing the left hand, it stopped after the first note, and the clone that was playing the right hand just kept on going, which is great. That's what we want. Just make sure we didn't break it. Let's go ahead and try it again with all of the notes in there. Good. Okay, so let's go back. One more thing I wanted to do, oops, let's make that smaller. I meant to go back to the music player. One more thing that we need to take care of when we're playing this music is to keep track of what beat we are inside of the measure that we're playing. Because I told you there can come a time when we're spanning, a note spans more than one measure, and we don't handle that very well right now. So I'm going to need a variable. I already have a my measure, I think. My current measure, right? So for this sprite, I need my current beat in measure. Okay, so we've got one of those now. I need to make sure I set that guy when we get started. We can actually start him. We'll start him at 0. That's fine. Everything's getting reset in initialized variables, and I see that I've set my current measure to 1 there, and I'll set that to 1 as well. So when we get actually started, we're on measure 1, beat 1. Okay. So when we start a new measure, we're going to want to always reset that back to 1. So let's see where we're changing the measure. So we set the change playing measure count by 1 right here. But we subtract it again here. Oh, that's because this is the resting guy. He doesn't need to worry about his beats. We only need to worry about the ones actually playing. So when we change the playing measure count by 1, we need to set my current beat in measure to 1. This one's going up, 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 but every time we change to a new measure, this guy needs to reset to 1. Oh, no. It's my current measure that we need to do that for. Playing measure counts is the global one. This is the one that's local to me. That's the one I need to change. So when my current measure changes by 1, that's where I need to reset it back to 1. Okay. Then when we actually play the note, we need to increase the beat that we've done right here. So we can do that either inside play note or we could do it after, but let's go ahead and do it inside play note. Where did we put play note? Oh, play note is, I'm sorry, wrong shade of purple. That shade of purple means it's actually one by Scratch from the sound section. So we just did it there. So we do have to do it here. So all we have to do is change the my current beat in measure. My current beat in measure is down here. By the next note duration. And let's go ahead and let's show that. My current beat in measure. Let's actually watch this happen. So this guy should be changing as he's playing the notes. Okay. So let's go ahead and make that guy bigger again and let's play him. And we can go back to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Ah, it's not changing. Alright. I didn't see that changing. Oh, there's a reason for that. The reason why it's not showing up inside here is because the clone that's doing the resting right here is the one that we actually see in this player. The guy who is basically the music index of 0 is the one doing my current beat in measure. So we can't actually see it doing it this way with Scratch, which is unfortunate. So I'm hoping it's changing, and we'd have to use a debug message to make it change. But it should be going up. Now, the reason why we did this is because if our duration gets bigger than the number of beats per measure, then we need to indicate that we need to that we're done with this particular measure. And so far, we've only done that until this case right here, when we're not in the current measure. That when we read the next note and it's not in the current measure. We need to break out of this and tell everybody that we're done if that duration's too big. And that means we probably have to do it before we play the note. All right, so let me do this. So I'm going to do this. If and I'm going to use greater than. If my current beat and measure is greater than the number of beats per measure, then I need to indicate to everyone that I'm no longer playing. So I need to change playing measures count by -1. And then I can play that note. And I think the only problem this brings up is we may change it twice. So let me make sure. That we don't do that twice. If we play here, it says we're no longer playing music at all. This is where we increase. I need an indication. All right, so basically what I need to do is if this case up here, I need to only do that if we didn't have that case before. Okay, so if, we need to put an if around that. And basically it's the opposite of what we just did. So if not, we can just duplicate this. Then that means that it wasn't taken care of up here and it needs to be taken care of up here. Now let's go ahead and try again. Make sure I didn't break anything. Is that all the length of the Twinkle Twinkle was? It stopped after a while. Anyway, okay. I don't think we've broken anything in particular. I'm not sure why it was quite as shorter than I expected it to be. I'll go look into that in a bit. But we're at the end of our time for this particular session, and we've done the two things which I hoped to accomplish in this session, which was to make sure that we kept track of the measures that we were in, and that we fixed that little error if the length of the music wasn't exactly the same. And that's what I was looking for. I wanted to be able to play a wider volume of music. And what I'm going to do, I think after this one's all done, and we're done talking here, I'm going to go and write a whole bunch of extra pieces of music so we can have some songs in here. And it's actually getting near Christmas time for us here, so I'll probably do some Christmas songs, put them in. I'll get this guy all published up. I'll put him up so you can see these videos. You can have the project shared and people can play with it. And this is actually a good spot where we are at kind of the end of where we need to be able to play music and to write your own music. So if you want to continue with me, great, because I'm going to do a lot more with this. I want to actually draw the keys in the piano being pressed as they're being played. I want to draw maybe some staff music or some roll music or something like that. I want to add play, pause, stop buttons, all that kind of fun stuff. But we're at a good point where this is a good project where you could just make up a whole bunch of songs if you wanted to and feel like you were done. So thank you for getting this far. We've got a music player here. If you want to continue with us, then great. I'll see you on the other side. If not, then have fun playing some music of your own, and hopefully I see you in another recording. Bye-bye.